Welcome back to Health Hangouts with Amanda. For those of you who might be just joining us for the first time today, this video series is all about spreading strength, hope, and love to those who are struggling with the pandemic. We are hoping to offer ideas of how to navigate the storm until it all passes, and that, you know, we're the provinces in Canada anyway are talking about, it's mid-May now, talking about reopening into what we're calling, BC is calling a phase 2. And so some of the businesses are reopening and we're allowed to go back into the world. So I did make a promise to all of our viewers here and all of our followers that I would post one video per day until we were allowed to go back into the world. And so this, my friends, will be the last video of that promise. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to stop the video series. We are still going to post periodic interviews with anybody who is interested. So I encourage people to continue coming forward and offering up insights and time to talk about their own stories here and just hang out with me in a healthy way. So thanks for being here. And today we have Sandra Daley with us. Hi, Sandra.
Hey.
Sandra and I have known each other for 12 years-ish, maybe more. And we started working together at an employment agency in Lethbridge, Alberta. And that was right when I was first out of my undergrad, just like a brand new little, like rearing to go, like my first job out of university. And then I was very blessed to move into an office with a handful of wonderful women who took me under their wing. And Sandra was one of those women. And actually to date, all of us in one way or another have stayed connected. So, you know, whenever I go to Alberta, I try and see these gals and stuff. So I consider all of them still close friends. And last time I saw you, Sandra, you were living in the UK. And that's where we were. We're at a kitchen table in the UK. And that was in the summer. Yeah.
Yes.
And now I understand that you've moved back to Alberta. Sandra, I'm going to hand it over to you to introduce yourself. Sandra has been an entrepreneur and self-employed since I've met her and likely before, I'm not sure. But if you want to just jump in and say what you're doing now, and the premise of this conversation is really about like how you're impacted by the pandemic, personally and professionally, and what you're doing to brave your own storm in this and work digitally and things like that. So Sandra, thanks for being here, and take it away.
All right. Well, first of all, I have to say I'm here because I love you.
That's very sweet. I love you too.
The idea of doing a video was a little outside my comfort zone, but I thought, you know what? Just put on your big girl panties and go do this with Amanda. So here we are. So yes, I moved back to Canada officially in January. And up till now, I've always worked in human services, and my self-employment in consulting has been human service related. So doing team building and personal and professional development coaching. And while I was in England, I decided, after seeing this really interesting machine over there that does fat freezing and body contouring treatments, that I would jump out of human services and into the world of beauty treatments. Which,
wonderful.
Yeah. So I found a machine in England and had it shipped over with the hope to start April 1st. I had a location all picked out in a mall close by.
Oh, I know where this is going.
Yes. So the machine actually took a little bit longer to get here because of shipping and port backups because of COVID-19. So it actually just arrived the end of April. The first shipment came mid-March and the second shipment came the end of April. So I do have my machine now, and I'm looking at getting started, but it's probably going to be maybe late June, early July before our second phase in Alberta opens up. Mm-hmm. So that has been a bit of a professional glitch with COVID-19. Also, interestingly, as I was holed up in my home, I started doing a lot of reflection about switching careers from human services into beauty, and just some reflection around what messaging I wanted to put out there, knowing all the societal pressures that we have around beauty, and the messages we might take on ourselves in thinking, what do I have to look like and what do I have to do, rather than what do I want to look like and what do I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I had some, oh my goodness, I'm doing the wrong thing. I shouldn't have gone into this realm, because am I being authentic? Am I being genuine? And I came out at a kind of an interesting place in thinking, I have a background in coaching and I have a background in empowerment, and I can blend the two in making sure that when I'm dealing with people who are coming for treatments, to offer them the opportunity for some coaching around that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you would be fantastic at that. I mean, I know for me, as this little 20-year-old that was coming into this employment agency, you supported me a lot in terms of like things I needed around coaching and support I needed, right? And even though it wasn't like the the beauty industry, you taught me so much. It was actually, I said this to you earlier, but it was actually, Sandra was the reason that I started learning about the difference between being an employee and being a contractor, and being self-employed and all of that. And although I did have a cleaning company at the time, I did not enjoy it, and I was not passionate about it, and I used it to help pay for my undergrad. But when I transitioned over into owning a counseling company, and actually left my job at that organization, I was there only for a year, and like, it's amazing to think like we've all stayed in connection for the most part, and I was only there 1 year, and just built these beautiful friendships during that time. And so, yeah, Sandra, I really wanted to thank you for that influence, even though at the time, I don't know that you knew you had that influence at all. You were just telling me what you were doing in your life, and I was just asking questions.
Well, it's amazing the interactions that we have, how they leave ripples.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, as I've been talking to a few other entrepreneurs, in this video series too, and in the last few days, and the message that I'm getting from all these people is like, try something new, ask questions, pave your path in whatever way that this seems authentic or feels best for you at that time, right? And so I think that is wonderful, that you decided that you wanted to try something new, because you just don't know where it's going to go. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, you're going to do something else. You've always been really like a master in creativity of figuring out what is going to work for you in human services too, right? Like, you've changed things that you were doing here and there. So I admire you for that. And that's one of the things that we've been saying to people, like keep going, don't give up. The hard part here, of course, is then the pandemic hits, and you have this machinery that's coming, and you have an office space ready to go. It's already hard enough to start a new business as is. It's really difficult. It takes a lot of money and time, and you're on your own, and then you think about hiring people, and then you have like this human resources thing you have to do, and then the pandemic hits. So my heart is heavy for you in a sense of, like, it was already hard enough, and then you couldn't open. And I wonder, how you've navigated that piece, because I can only imagine how challenging that's been, and like the losses there.
Yeah, I think my entrepreneurial spirit comes from growing up in a farming background.
Mm-hmm.
So just having that foundation of being willing to take some risks, and I think I've been blessed in having the knowledge that I have a really secure safety net. Mm-hmm. So even if everything fell out, I have such a strong circle of friends and family. One of the biggest things that I had to learn was to actually reach out to them. So even though they've always been there, it probably took me into my 40s before I was ready to ever ask for help, or ask for whether it be help with ideas, or help I'm having a tough day, I need to talk to somebody, or help I just need to come and vent, even though now I can't come to the house, but pick up the phone and call someone. And help if I have something that I just don't know where to turn with, to put it out to the friends and family, which I have been doing. Yeah,
that's wonderful. So as far as opening, what's your game plan there? Like, are you sticking with this plan? I mean, you've invested in this equipment, right? I imagine you signed some sort of agreement or lease. Like, are you going to follow through with trying to open?
So I'm lucky enough that my space agreement, the lady at the mall who owns the spa where I was going to open up, is just a wonderful, fabulous supporter of women entrepreneurs. And she said that there's no need to feel like I have to come to the mall, because we didn't sign anything. It was more of a verbal exploration. And she said that she knows that starting a business in a mall right now might not be the best place to put a monthly rental amount out into. So I'm kind of waiting for that piece, because they have opened the spa has opened for the hair salon side of treatments. And she said that she's going to keep me abreast of how things go there. And if I feel that there's enough mall traffic to warrant paying rent there, then I'll go that way. And if not, I think I'm going to explore offering services from home.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Can you do that? That's amazing. And then this idea of the world kind of going, not kind of, but overnight going digital. Like, you're offering a service that you have to be in person, and at some point you'll be able to do that, whether it's from home or in the mall or wherever you decide to go. You also have an extensive background in coaching too, and you have so many transferable skills. Have you done or thought about doing any digital coaching services online, or doing some kind of transition to make an income that way?
Yeah, I'm currently doing some volunteer coaching. So I reached out to an organization that I used to work with here in Edmonton, Terra, working with young families, teen families. And I wanted to volunteer with them. And as things are a little bit different right now, the opportunity came up to do some coaching with an employee there.
Yeah. And
it re-sparked my coaching fire. I'm like, oh yes. I absolutely can't go totally beauty industry. I need to still be doing this coaching. So I have been it's been in the back of my mind how I can maybe do some virtual coaching as well as launch this new business.
Yeah, and I think as entrepreneurs, and I certainly will speak only for myself, but it's important to have our hands in different pots. If I guess it's the best way to say that is instead of putting all our eggs in one basket and looking at other opportunities that we have and other doors that can open, because we just don't know, right? Like you stepped out of it and now you're like, wow, like I miss this, or I really enjoy this, so I want to dabble in this, whether it's volunteer or paid. If it feeds your soul, then there's value there. And I honestly, if I could work for free forever, I would. Like, I wish that I could do that, because but I can't. So we do our best. But I see that's great that you're stepping back into something that you are passionate about, while also endeavoring on something new that you find very appealing. That's wonderful. So as for let's going back to the beauty treatments. at what point do you think that you could start offering treatments from home, or like what would be a projected start date for you?
Well, here in Alberta, we're rolling out in phases. So phase one started Thursday, and they, last I heard, there was a tentative projection for June 19th for hands-on spa treatments. So I'm hoping, if all goes well with the first phase one rollout, that June 19th will be our phase two.
Yeah, yeah. And then by that time, it gives you some time to figure out where you're going to offer this from, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So that's wonderful. And what's the company called, Sandra?
Body Reboot.
Body Reboot. And what's the website?
www.bodyreboot.ca.
Awesome. So when we do a write-up of this conversation, we'll post that on the write-up, and people can just click on that and gain direct access to you, or explore what this is and what the technology is, because it sounds like, I mean, this was from the UK. Now, oftentimes, I don't know, don't quote me on this, but my experience of like things come out in the UK way quicker than they come out here, like music, cereal, you name it, right? Everything was so different there when I was there for the first time in my life. It was like amazing to go and see, anyway, I could talk about that forever. But so my question, I guess, does this technology exist in Canada at all, or is this something? It does? Okay.
Yeah. So part of my rationale for bringing it from the UK, though, was I was impressed with the manufacturer in England, just the research center that they have dedicated to the procedures. So it's similar. Have you heard of cool sculpting?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so that's the more well-known one here in North America, and the procedures are very similar to cool sculpting, as well as the machine that I got not only does the cool sculpting or the fat freeze, but it does what's called a laser lipo. So it's a cold laser that targets fat areas, and it actually melts the fat cells so that we can express them out of the body.
Very interesting. Yeah, I don't know anything about any of that stuff, but the education is cool, and I love whatever it is that you love. Like whatever you put your heart and soul into, I will support you the best I can always, and wish for you success, for sure. So that's exciting. So maybe, by the beginning of phase two, you'll have everything kind of organized for yourself, and you can hit the ground running. But even prior to that, are you advertising this? Are you, getting feelers out there for followers and things like that in terms of social media, and kind of building your brand that way?
Well, I am going to start. When I got the machine, it was actually missing a piece.
Oh no, it's like Murphy's Law. It's like, oh, when something can go wrong, it goes wrong.
Yeah. So I do have a whole string of friends who, of course, are ready to be on call for when the machine is ready to go, so I can start videoing some treatments and getting them out. I have to wait until I get the last missing piece before I can actually start them, but I think it should be next week, actually. That's what I'm putting out there to the universe. It's going to be next week.
Yeah, and I've learned a lot in the last, I don't know, few years about the value of social media and getting your message out there and your information out there, and the more people know, the more people they'll tell, et cetera, and so forth. So we've been, and now we're in this like heightened digital age, right? And of course, this is my wheelhouse. Is like I've been doing this digital thing for 7 years or something like that at this point, but it was only in the last few years that I realized the value of marketing using social media channels. And there's all kinds of different things that you can do, but yeah, if you're not going to open for another month or month and a half or whatever it's going to be, yeah, hitting the social media, and like we're happy to promote what you're doing too, and all of that, and get your name out there more and more, and then hopefully you'll have a wait list at some point.
Well, that would be lovely. And
Yeah.
I may pick your brain more about all these technological ways to market myself, because you definitely are inspirational.
Well, I appreciate that, Sandra. Yeah, I'm happy to give you everything I know. You just come on board. I'll show, you know, some of it'll be valuable and some of it might not be useful. But I could certainly, you know, with open arms, show you what I've learned for sure. Absolutely. And so I'm interested too in how you guys have been managing personally with the pandemic, because that, like, a move from like England to Edmonton, like, it's a big deal. It was a big deal when you moved there. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, you're all over the world. And then you're like, come, you know, we were sitting at your kitchen table that night. And you were like, oh yeah, we're going to move back. And I was like, what? Yeah. So how has that been? And then boom, you get here and now there's this pandemic and like, oh, how have you guys been doing with that?
Well, first I have to say it's a good thing that you came to visit when you did. So we got to have an England adventure together.
Yes.
Because that was fun. Yeah, there have been a lot of changes in our lives. So 2019, both Llewellyn and I lost a parent. And with that, he knew he was going to be leaving the army. He was having medical issues and was getting a medical discharge. So we knew that big change was coming. So for him, losing his career and then deciding to come back to Canada, which was another big decision for both of us. So lots of big change, all kind of in 2019. And then arriving here in January of this year and hoping to settle really quickly and finding that wasn't going to be our reality. So it's been interesting to just the development of our relationship, even because we're really fairly newly married. We got married in 2017 after being long distance, him in England and me in Canada and Nicaragua. And then only, I guess, 2 years into our marriage, having all this change to deal with. So thankfully, it's turned out okay.
Yeah, and you're still together and you're like, you're working on this as a unit.
Yeah, and we've discovered that that we really are best friends. And it's been important to remind ourselves that when we're living together 24/7. And even living with anyone, a roommate 24/7 can be difficult. But just I don't know, it's just I have a different approach and maturity in this marriage. I think, being second marriage and a bit older, that I can check in with myself when if I get frustrated with something, I can check in and say, you know what, that's my deal. I'm frustrated with something. Usually it's something small that is an irritant that's reflecting something back on me that I need to say, whoa, check yourself, chick, because that's not his deal.
Yeah.
Go for a walk, get out of the house. Him chewing his cereal is okay.
Yeah, that's a great one, because sometimes we just get so annoyed by people and we're like, shut up, you know, or like, like, I wish you know, and that's a normal human thing that we get, you know, but it's not about them. It has everything to do with what's happening here. And so I love that, like, reminding yourself, like, if I'm being annoyed by this thing, it's like, that is okay, this thing that's happening, like chewing cereal, but it's like, what's happening in here is not okay. with me. So I need to do something to tame that, whatever it is, right? And taking responsibility for your own feelings and reactions.
Yeah. The other thing that I have been experiencing, so I turned 50 this year, and I'm experiencing some perimenopausal dealios.
I don't know anything about that yet, but I've heard it's not great.
Well, let me tell you, I have never, like, even as a pre-adolescent, I never really experienced hormonal shifting or goings-ons. And in in pregnancy, I didn't really feel any big mood, kind of emotional changes. Well, I think I was saving it all up for now.
Oh, boom, right?
So that's where things like the cereal come in, because as I think you know me fairly well, I'm pretty easygoing, and like not a lot of things get to me, and I can handle a lot of external stress.
Absolutely.
So when I started noticing that, hey, I am like irritable, the smallest little things, I thought, well, maybe it's this living together 24/7, but I've realized that there are some hormonal changes going on that are impacting the way I react.
Yeah. And that's a great example, Sandra, of what life looks like even outside of a pandemic, right? Like like life is hard. It's hard in a variety of ways. And then we have the pandemic that compounds all of this. Now, for some people, the pandemic has provided really positive outcomes. And for some people, it has not at all. And so there's this, you're irritable because of the hormonal changes that you're going through, but also it's like you are in the same house all the time. And it's like, for the person who's not going through hormonal changes, you would think that could be challenging also for different reasons. I mean, we love these people that we live with, we assume, but it's still difficult not to have, we say in healthiest relationships, there's a really nice balance in interdependence, which means that you have your connection together, and then you have time apart, and then you come back together and you're a unit, but you also have your separate lives. In a pandemic, like we can't really do that. Like, even in my household, like there's two of us in here, and I come upstairs and I'm in the office, and I have, there's some separation, and then we come together periodically throughout the day, but it's very different than if she goes off to work and then comes home at dinner and we have dinner, but there's no friend time either, like we have. That's part of the reason for these videos too, is to be able to connect, and like I love seeing you. I miss you. It's really warms my heart to be able to spend this time with you. But it's hard. So yeah, on top of the pandemic, you also have this, which you would have anyway, but now it's compounded, right? Can I ask, and please, share only what you're comfortable with the world knowing, because that's what will happen here. This video will be witnessed by a few hundred people at the very least. Are you willing to talk about how you and Llewellyn are navigating that together? The challenges that are a result of course the hormonal changes, but also of the pandemic, because the move is a big deal, and then all these changes and the loss of your parents, and yeah, it's just a lot.
Yeah, I was hoping that he would do this video with me, because well, I just know that we would have a good three-way conversation as well. Yeah. But it was a little
bit.
Go
get him. I'm just kidding. Don't put him on the spot like that. But just kidding.
Well, of course, there's been ups and downs, and when he lost his dad, it was actually so difficult on many levels. His dad was in London, and we were living outside of London, so his dad was in the last stages of cancer, and he went and lived in London with his dad for the last month or so, and it was a hard time for us not only losing his parent, but I didn't drive in England. So, and I was,
I remember.
yeah, you were very brave.
I was driving,
You did
and
so well.
it was fun and terrifying to drive coming from Canada going over. So I don't blame you, because I was very scared driving in England. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I get it.
So part of it was I was feeling a little isolated out in my little village,
Yeah.
and he was really struggling with watching his dad die, and he was the primary caregiver in the home. It was just him and his dad, and then a care nurse would kind of come and go. But he didn't want to put any strain on me or share and open that up with me. So as much as I would call and ask how things are going, and he really shut down a lot. So he didn't want to talk about things, and I was on the outside not being able to contribute. So there was a long stretch of us feeling really I don't know, disjointed, and both of us feeling helpless, but in different ways. So when his dad passed, we actually went and saw a padre on his base that he had been talking to individually, and I think that really helped, just having somebody to walk through with us, and really helped him kind of open up where he was afraid to overburden me. So yeah, definitely, again, having an outside support can be invaluable.
Well, you know, the two of you seem to have quite a strong bond. You know, I met Llewellyn I met Llewellyn for the first time when we were in your home there in just outside of London, and it was just beautiful, the connection between the two of you. You know, and the love you have for each other, and you are new in your marriage, and to have all these challenges, it speaks to the strength you have together and facing them and staying together. You know, a lot of people, they decide to separate in times of conflict or challenges like that, right? And can you, you know, as I think about talking to you about this, I think about anybody who's watching who's having trouble in their relationship and not knowing what to do and wanting to stay and work it out. And I wonder if you have any words of encouragement of how you've been able to do that in your marriage, especially when things get really hard, and really speaking to the people who might be listening who can relate.
I think for me, I believe that our words have such power. So before I engage in any conversations, or if I'm feeling really triggered by something where I might react instead of respond, I think it's really important to kind of check in with, am I going to say something that could really harm this relationship? Or, you know, what do I really want in this relationship, and how do I need to behave to get that? So if that's, I need to take a break, or and think before I speak. As one of Llewellyn's favorite things to say is, think more and say less. So I think that, really checking in with how might I react that could harm this situation, when in my heart of hearts, I don't want harm. I want this to flourish.
Yeah, I think that a lot of us, when we're angry or we're challenged, we will lash out. And although in our heart of hearts, and I agree, like, we don't want to cause harm or hurt this person that we love, we do anyway, as a means to one up, or like try and be better than, or we try and do that to feel heard. get our point across in an aggressive way, just to scare the other person to listen to us or whatever it is. And that's such a common way of dealing with anger and outburst. And I think it's really valuable. It's very important and valuable for us to be able to recognize when we're becoming, heated in those moments, and taking a step back in that before the floodgates open, if you will, or before what I call like the volcano bursts, or before we start like throwing things and screaming, right? Because this is sometimes what we do when we're angry as human beings. And saying, okay, like like you said earlier, Sandra, like going for a walk, like this thing that's happening to me, I'm not going to blame him for. I'm going to say, like, what do I need to do to not cause further harm? And then what is the best or most effective way to be heard with what I'm trying to say? And if I scream or I throw something, or I, however I react in an outburst kind of way, is that going to cause me to feel heard? And, if we and I say this from personal experience, and I've smashed plates on the ground before, and I've been mad, and I feel better when I smash the plate, or punch a pillar or rip a pillar or something like that. But then after that, it's just like, it's releasing, but it's destructive also, and it's harmful. And then I think, oh, am I going to regret that I said this thing or did this thing? And so now I've learned how to tap into how to step back before I get to a place where I actually want to break a plate on the ground. And I don't need that kind of release anymore, or slam doors or smash things, right? And so and this is I said, like, this conversation is unscripted, like this is kind of what just kind of, they take a life of their own. But I do think that the topic of anger in relationships, especially during a pandemic when we're stuck at home together all the time, is really valuable. We have had numerous reports all over the world of increased domestic violence and child abuse and things like this, and these family members, like, we don't know how to get out of that. And furthermore, for the people who are angry and pressing that abuse upon others, whether it's verbal or otherwise, oftentimes we don't know how to step out of that early before those abuses start to happen. So I think it's a really valuable topic. But of course, the where this started was recognizing that it is possible for us to succeed in our relationships if both people are willing to look at themselves, willing to do the things necessary not to harm the other person. And if we do harm the other person, learning from it, doing it differently the next time, acknowledging what is ours, taking responsibility, right? These things, and protecting not only ourselves in this process, but the ones that we love, like our spouses, our children, our brothers and sisters, etc. So I don't know if there's anything that you'd like to add to that, but that's just kind of where my mindset went on this topic.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, saying that it takes two people to be willing to do that work. And if somebody's in a situation where they're unsafe because the other person isn't doing what they need to do, then definitely for that person to do what they need to do to be safe, or reach out to let people know. And saying that, it's hard to reach out. And sometimes we have all sorts of messages going through our head about why we can't reach out. And I know my experience working in different agencies and working with people who've experienced family violence and domestic abuse. We sometimes think that it's easier than it is. And we wonder, well, why don't they just get out of the situation? And it's so complex. And I think the more that we can offer our unconditional support wherever somebody is in keeping themselves safe in a relationship, so that people feel okay to let others know where they're truly at, genuinely at, and not feel judged because they're going to stay or they're going to leave.
Yeah. And I know it can be so scary to say what's happening, like to talk to others and reach out for help and ask. I know that could be really scary. Been there so many times, in various ways, and addiction and otherwise, and trying to heal and understand myself. And I love what you've said, Sandra, because it's important. Like, actually reach out. There are places out there, services out there that you can access for free to start the process of getting well. And we might not know what that means. We might say, oh, I'm well, I'm fine, this is not a big deal, like, we'll get through it. And what we find in the abuse cycle, or the cycle of violence, is that it doesn't get better, it escalates over time. And it might take years and years to escalate, but it does escalate if that's what's happening. And so and I'm not going to put, I put that in a generalization. I'm not going to say that's exactly the same for everybody, but notably in the research that historically clinicians have done and doctors have done, and as we see that the cycle of violence escalates. And so this is for anybody who is listening, is struggling with their relationship, and you're scared, do something to support yourself, because if you don't, you might stay stuck there, and it can be really dangerous for you, right? For you and anybody that you're living with, or your family system. So I say that solemnly, but I say it like in a way that I want to really connect with you, because I understand this stuff, and Sandra understands this stuff in various ways. And so I love, Sandra, that you have been able to brave this storm with Llewellyn. But there's multiple storms in here, right? However you look at it, right? And you're still together and going strong, doing what you can. I have invited Llewellyn to, of course, do a video here too, and I certainly hope that he does, because he's brilliant. He's got a lot of great things to share, a lot of wisdom to impart. And so I hope that he's able to get to a place where he is willing to do that. But again, like, it's scary to go on a video and have that video seen by hundreds of people. And believe me, I know that too. When I started this video thing, I was terrified, and I had this coach, this speaking coach, Sean Tyler Foley. Actually, I did a video with him like weeks ago, and he was my speaking coach. And I said to him, I am way too scared to do this. And he was like, just put a 5-minute video out on the speakers page and you'll be fine. And I did it, and I felt like, okay. And then I did nothing for a year. I was like, this is way too scary. And then there was 3 primary reasons why we wanted to do this video podcast in the first place. And I thought, like, F it, like, I'm just gonna do it. And if people like it, then that's great. If they benefit from it, like, that's my hope. If they hate it, great. Like, I'm okay with that. Like, you do what you want with it. If you don't like it, then don't watch it, and that's okay. And so far so good. And being a bit braver to share some more things as time unfolds. But yeah, I think that if we can put, this might be a bit challenging, but if we can put a bow on the themes of this conversation for people out there who are like, how can I brave this storm? Like, I've lost my job, or I wasn't able to open, or I had to close my business, and I'm having conflict in my marriage at home, and the kids are home all the time, and I'm losing my mind. What can we say to those people to encourage them to keep going, keep trying, and recognize that this is not the end all be all? This will change. What can we say to them? Sandra, if you have any thoughts about that.
Oh, well, I think it's something that's been said often, but the only thing that's constant in life is change.
Yeah.
And if we can see that this too shall pass, we're going to get through. And if we can think of any small little thing we can do each day that will lead us to get through a little bit stronger, a little bit wiser, a little bit more stable. If we can just pick one tiny little thing each day, then we're gonna get there.
That's all we need. It's just one small thing. It's, sometimes I look at the mountain of whatever it is that I have to cross or, complete, and I immediately become defeated. And so I love that, because if I just take one step, or I set a point in my mind saying, okay, by this date, I'm going to get to this place, or by tomorrow morning, I'm going to have this conversation with this person that's really scary, or I'm going to do a journal, and I'm going to prepare myself to have a conversation with this person that's really scary. Like doing these little things, we actually tap into and open doors to the strength that we don't know that we have. And you'll surprise yourself if you actually take that first step, and you keep, little by little. And if you're asking for help also, you're going to have a ton of valuable, hopefully, depending on where your sources of help are coming from, but hopefully valuable insights as to what else you can be doing to prepare yourself in a baby step kind of way. And I agree. And that's how I'm doing it. Little by little, lots of tears in the beginning, and I had to make a point of saying, you know what, I need to change my behavior so I don't fall into depression and allow my anxiety to overtake me. And that was during this pandemic. Like, I'm a seasoned professional and I have to do that, right? So I'm saying, like, all of us, like, we're all human, we're all on the same level, we have different stories, different education, different experiences, different age groups, but we all have the same set of feelings, and it's all gifts, all the things that we can learn from what we're experiencing here. Yeah, and Sandra, I love that you've just shown up today and just had this hangout with me, just like we would normally have if I was over in your living room. I've missed you tons, and it was so cool to see you over in the UK, because we actually, I can't remember what it was, riverboat locks, I think that's what they're called. We went to the river lock, and there's these riverboats that I'd never seen before, and the lock system of how they move up and down the river. And I don't even know how to explain it, but it was fascinating. And then for like 5 minutes, I was like, I'd live on a riverboat for the rest of my life. And then I was like, and then I almost got attacked by a goose, or was that what, a swan? Was it a swan? Oh my gosh, it was a swan. And we'll wrap up here in a second, but this is what happens with Sandra and I. We just like randomly talk about different things. So Michaela, the person that I was traveling with, and my current partner, she told me, I'm not going to share personal information here, but she was telling me this terrifying story about a swan when she was a little kid. And I was like, oh, whatever, it's just a bird, like, it's not a big deal, right? And then we saw this huge swan, and it starts walking towards us, and it was just, and I was like, oh, look, like this cute little huge swan, and it made this sound. So I'm not even going to try and imitate it. I'm not going to try and do that. And it made this horrible sound, and it was like coming toward us, and it was making this sound as though it was going to attack. I don't know if this is your version of the story.
I think you should.
No, there's no way, but look it up. If people want to know the terrifying attack sound of a swan, like, Google that, because it is terrifying. And then I was like, holy, like, we need to get away from this bird. And Michaela was like freaking out, and the thing, it was like karma, kind of, because I was kind of like poking fun at her, because I was like, whatever, like, they're not that dangerous, it's not a big deal. Yeah, they are. Yeah, actually really scary. So anyway, so I go off in tangents, but yeah, the river locks, that was a fascinating system. It was really, really neat to spend that day with you guys, and we just walked there. Like, it was like, well, actually, no, we didn't. I can't remember. We were driving, and then we walked there.
Yeah. Oh, we went to
it was a beautiful day. Oh yeah, what was that? It wasn't Stonehenge. It was Avebury.
Right?
That was, it was an amazing day, and I'd always love to connect with you and spend time with you when I can. So of course, as you know, I get to Alberta about once a year, and so when I get to Alberta, I would love to, I don't generally get to Edmonton, but if you would jump in a car and come and see me in Calgary, that would be really sweet. Yeah,
let's make it happen.
That'd be awesome. We'll make it happen for sure. Who knows? I still, like, normally I go to Manitoba to see my mother, also my sister, and some other family members who live in Winnipeg. every year, but we're not allowed to travel right now. So I'm just going to stay put and everything's on hold. So, you know, it might be a little while, but that's the beauty of being able to connect in this way too. You know, I almost forgot this was being recorded. And then it's a good thing I didn't forget though, because sometimes we talk about, you know, personal things that might be inappropriate for live TV. But yeah.
Yeah, we'll save that for another time.
We'll save that for later. So yeah, I think this might be just a really good place to close. And is there anything that you want to say in closing at all before we do that?
Just thank you for showing me that we can be brave and do things that are outside our comfort zone and we still live. Look, I'm still alive.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Yeah, no, I agree. And you know, from my heart to yours, the fact that you showed up today, even through your own trepidation around it, means a lot to me.
Well, it's a testament of my appreciation and my respect for you.
Oh, well, thank you, Sandra. So I will, like I said, I'll put your website on the thing so we can, on the write-up, so we can promote what you're doing. And then I'll, of course, tag you in the video, and you can choose to accept that tag or not. It'll likely be posted Monday, I imagine, and then you can share it with whoever you want, if you so choose, of course.
Cool. It was good to talk with you.
Yeah, always tell Llewellyn I said hi, and hopefully he and I can connect sometime in the future.
Yes, I'm on it.
Okay. All right. Love you, Sandra.
Okay. Love you too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.